And we continue with Gemara in Kiddushin, Daf Samoch Aleph. And once again, we like to dedicate all the learning. Talmud Torah Kenegei Kulam, Talmidei Chachamim, Marbim Shalom Ba'ilam. Hopefully through the Torah we can become a little bit more of a Talmud Chacham and thereby slowly be Marbeh Shalom Ba'ilam for all of Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael. We're holding on, Samoch Amid Beis, 3 lines from the bottom. Al minas sheish li b'makim pliny. Continuing quoting the Mishnah, if someone is mekadish and ish on condition he has a base core of land in a certain place, said the Gemara, if he has in that place, they are mikudeshes. If not, not. Says Gemara Pshita, that's obvious. Explains the Gemara, he can tell her, why do you care? Who cares if I have a base core in a specific place? I'm going to give you, I'll support you, I'm going to give you whatever you need. So why do you care where my business is, where my base core is? Kamash Malan, that he cannot say that. Amanash Erech, a base core offer, and I show you a base core of land. Says the Gemara, Tana, we learned in a Raisa, she wants to see something belongs to him, and therefore he has to actually show her land that is his. And on the last line, says the Gemara Pshita, explains the Gemara, Tura. The case is discussing that he has it as a sharecropper. So he actually does have a portion in the land. So therefore we would think that Lamaisa it should work. Kamash Malan, that it does not. Says the Gemara, Gabe Hektish Tanan. Gabe Hektish Tanan, as we turn over to Samach Aleph, Amid Aleph, the following Mishnah of Erechin discusses similar to that which we were discussing with regard to Hektish. Says the Mishnah, Maktish Sadeyu Bishas HaYovel. If someone is Maktish his field during Yovel, what is the halacha? Noisein, he has to give Bizera Chaymer Sairim for every area which a Chaymer of Sairin grows. 1 second, they're highlighting, just stop working. For every area on which a Chaymer of Sairin grows, Chamisha Shekel Kesef. But, continues the Mishnah, there are deep clefts, 10 tvachim deep. Slaim Gavayim. You have some sort of mountains which were asar tvachim einim dadimima. They are not counted towards the land. But pachas mikan. Then yes, nim dadimima. Vavina abba, and on the Mishnah we wonder, nehei debadi aro loikadshu. I understand that if they have these large clefts or mountains, they're not counted towards. But ask the Gemara, Nikdishu Bape Nafshayu. Again, I apologize that we're having video issues. We're going to have to turn off the video, and hopefully we will get to the bottom of this. But ask the Gemara, Nikdishu Bape Nafshayu. They should be Kodesh onto their own. And if you're going to suggest the reason why these areas are not on the Kodesh onto their own, Kamad Lave base core, Loi Chashiv, according to not a base core. They're not chashiv, or I'll ask you a stira. Sad matam loymar. Why does the Pasuk say sad? Elafisha nemar zera chaymer sairin bechamisha in lielish hektish beinyan hazeh minay and the rabbis lata v'chatzi lata echsa. And we know to include even small areas. Tarkev v'chatzi tarkev v'afilu roiva minayin tam loymar sadeh. Mikol Makayim. So the word sad that we know to include any area, and therefore it says the Gemara, regardless of the size of the land, the 50 shekel should apply to that land. So ask the Gemara, why don't the different clefts and ditches and mountains apply towards this area? Explains the Gemara about 10 lines down. First one line is Amar Amar Marukva Barachama Hacha B'Nekayim Melayim Mayim Askinan. It's a ditch filled with water. Shamdalav and Ezriya Ninu, because they're not able to grow vegetation. Dekanami says the Gemara. You know what the proof is? The Katani Adumya the Salayim Gavayim. It's compared to tall mountain Shmami Na, that it's an area that agricultural does not grow. Ask the Gemara Yachav Ilabach Zikanami. Then it should even be less than this requisite area. Who cares of the size if it does not grow anything? Says the Gemara. Hanu Nagni Dara Mekri. That up until that size, they're called the bowls of the land, Shidra Dari Mekri, the spine of the land, that these small areas don't have their own shame, they're not considered its own independent area. It's rather just part of the larger area, and therefore, even though you cannot plant there due to the fact they're filled with water, but Lamaisa, they are counted with the rest of the field towards the minimum of the base core. Says the Gemara, let's see a parallel of this halacha gavei mecher. With regard to the sale of a land, a very similar halacha. How does it work with regard to different parts of the field when you're selling a whole field? So Gabi Mecher Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah, Haimer Lechaveiroi Pays Kor Offer, Ani Moicher Loch, Leisham Nikaima Mukim Asar Tfachim, selling Gvayim Asar Tfachim. So tells his friend, I'm selling you a base core, but then within that base core there are unusable areas. What's the halacha? Ein Nimdadim Imar, not counted towards it. Bachs Mikan. Less than that, then they are nimdadim ima. Va'amar ma'ukva b'achama av'albi she'ein malaya mayim, even though they're not filled with water. My taima amar ababa. You know the reason is you should on the road to she'itin is ma'isa v'sada achas v'yirla kishtayim v'shleisha mekaymais. So says the Gemara, when it comes to purchasing of a field, we have a different svara. We have the svara that someone wants to buy one field, someone doesn't want to buy an area that appears like multiple fields, and that's the reason why it doesn't work. Asks the Gemara, Hacha Mai, what is the din in our case? How do we equate this field, which has these ditches and these mountains, is only with these requisite sizes like we thought originally, or not? Says the Gemara, Mistaber lahektish midamnin Allah. Because he could say, I'll be mutayreach, and I will give it to you. Meaning, when it comes to a mecher, we have an additional svar that a person doesn't want it to appear that he owns multiple small lands, and therefore, even when it's not filled with water, still it's not going to be counted towards the overall area, even though it is theoretically planted. And the reason being, when one buys a land, he wants to buy one land. He doesn't want to buy an area that appears to multiple lands. Whereas our case will be more medamnina and more compared to hektish. So we continue with the Mishnah on the bottom of Samach Aleph, Amid Aleph, continuing the very famous sugya of Tanai b'nei Gad b'nei Reuven. Says the Mishnah Rabbi Meir Oimer, and this is a statement, this is the din of Rabbi Meir that we have all over Shas, called Tanai shenik Tanai b'nei Gad b'nei Reuven. Einoi Tanai, says Rabbi Meir. And if you want to make a condition, it has to be a condition like the condition that we find in the Torah by the Bnei Gad Bnei Reuven. Shenamar V'yom Elokeim, as Hashem said to them, Im Yavru Bnei Gad Bnei Reuven. If you pass and you fight with the rest of Klal Yisrael to conquer Eretz Yisrael, then you'll get a portion. Uksev, and then the Psukim continue with the converse. V'im Lo Yavru Chalutzim, that if you do not cross over with everyone else. What do we see? That the Torah Hashem said both the positive and the negative. No, you can't bring a raya from there. Hashem had to say the positive and negative. Because without it, it would have sounded like they don't even get in Eretz Canaan. So this is going to be the makar for potential Tanaim that any time one wants to make a halachic stipulation, is a double Tanai necessary? Does one have to speak out both the positive and the negative, or not? And we're seeing over here in the Mishnah that Rameir says yes, whereas Rav Chanina ben Gamliel says there's no raya from that case. So says the Gemara, Rav Chanina ben Gamliel seems to have a good point. Shabir, Karmel, Rav Chanina ben Gamliel, Rameir. Rav Chanina ben Gamliel is responding very well to Rameir. Amlach Rameir says, Is al gedaitach lav letanai. Says Rameir, if you're going to tell me that the Torah was not doubling the Lashon Tanai Kafalu Dasa, that it's not coming to teach us the double Lashon, so Lichtov, the Torah should have said, if it lo yavu v'nachzu b'seichem, Beretz Kinan, why would those words had to have been repeated? Lamali, Shema Amina, the Tanai Kafalu Dasa. So Rameir sticks to his guns that that's the only plausible reason why the Torah would have specified both positive and negatives to teach us this klal of a Tanai Kafel. And we turn over to Sevach Alam and Beis and says, Rav Chanina ben Gamliel, Amar, like Rachmana be'eretz Kinan, if the Torah, so Chanina ben Gamliel responds to Rameir. Rameir says from the doubling of the pasuk, we learn out that you always need a Tanai Kafel. You always need to say a Tanai Kiddushin, the positive and the negative. Why? Because why did the pasuk have to speak out for the second time? Eretz Kinan. Responds Rav Chanina, no. Rav Chanina Amar, because Rachmana be'eretz Kinan. You know what I would have thought? Hava amina v'nechazu b'seichachem. I would have thought that which the pasuk says that they inherit within you be'eretz Gilad. That means they get a portion land of Gilad. Aval eretz Kinan klal loy. So that's why the pasuk had to speak out as it did, says Rav Chanina ben Gamliel. V'Rameir, and in the classical Gemara case, a ping pong responds, Rameir, Pesayichem kolecha de'islachu mashma. So that is the machlaikas number one of Rav Chanina ben Gamliel and Rameir, whether anytime a halachic stipulation is created, does one have to speak out both the positive and the negative alike? We find by the Tanai of Bnei Gad Bnei Ruvain, says Rameir, yes. Says Rav Chanina ben Gamliel, no. Tanya, we learned in a brayso 7 lines down, Samachalav and Beis. Amar Rav Chanina ben Gamliel, Mashal Amah Davar Daima. Says Rav Chanina ben Gamliel, I'll tell you what the following is analogous to. L'adam shei machalik nechasel lebanav, someone is portioning his properties to his children. Amar pleni b'ni yar sada plainis. This son gets this field. Upleni b'ni yar sada plainis. This son gets this field. Upleni b'ni, and this son yitim asayim zos. He has to give 200 yar sada plainis. V'im lo yitain, and if he does not give the 200 zos, yarishim achav, he'll get with the rest of his brothers bishar nechasim, with all the other possessions. So now says the Gemara, mi garam lo lirish es im achav bishar nechasim. Which statement allows the child to collect with his brothers in the rest of the estate? Kefela garam loy. It is the doubling. It is the fact that the pasuk, that the father in this case said it over twice. So too, the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu doubled over the statement is that which allowed Bnei Gad and Bnei Ruvain to get anything within Eretz Canaan, says Rav Chanina ben Gamliel. But ask the Gemara of Damya, Mashal Amas Nisan. You brought a mashal to prove your point, but says the Gemara, the mashal and our Mishnah are not comparable. Hasam Katani Yesh b'Masha Shavilu B'Eretz Canaan Lo Yinchalu. The reason why the cases are different, because in the Mishnah, if Moshe Rabbeinu did not say the second half of the statement, then Yesh b'Mashma, that they would not even get Eretz Canaan. What does it mean they would not even get Eretz Canaan? They would get nothing at all if they didn't fight with the rest of Klal Yisrael. Lo yichalmu. Alma kfeila la'eretz Gilad nami mahani. So we see the doubling help for even Eretz Gilad. It allowed them to get anything. Whereas without it, they would have gotten nothing. So it's not comparable to the mashal you just brought, because in the case of the mashal, the son would have gotten something in all scenarios. Says the Gemara of Hacha Katani, here in the brayso Rav Chanina teaches as follows. Mi garam lo lirish machav, who is causing him to inherit with his brothers, b'shar nechasav. Kefeilam garam lo, alma kefeilo l'shar nechasam, oh, tikama hani. So what do we see? We see that according to Rav Chanina, you do indeed need the doubling. So asks the Gemara that according to Rav Chanina ben Gamliel, we didn't think there was any point to double over the Tanai. Says the Gemara, Loi Kasha Amakmi the name of the Rameir v'nechziu halabasar the name of the Rameir v'nechezu. Says the Gemara, one was before our Mishnah is discussing Rav Chanina, what he first said to Rameir. Before Rameir responded to him, learning it out from the extra pasuk of v'nechezu. Whereas the Brisa is teaching Rav Chanina has told Rameir after Rameir responded with v'nechezu. Continues the Gemara within the discussion of Rameir Chanina ben Gamliel. Let's try to figure out who is right. Lamaisa, do we need a Tanai Kafel or not? Says the Gemara, smack in the middle of the Gemara, first one line is v'nechezu. Bishlama l'Rameir hainu d'chsev Rameir who says you need a Tanai Kafel. I understand the pasuk that says im seitiv seisim lo seitiv lepetachatos rayvitz, that the pasuk doubles it over because according to Rameir that is what is necessary. Elor Rav Chanina alamali explains the Gemara because according to Rav Chanina sakad techamina im seitiv igra v'im lo seitiv lo igra v'lo dina. You would have thought if you do better, then you're going to get a reward. If you don't do it, then you won't get a punishment or a reward. Kamash malan, that you will. Continues the Gemara with another kasha. Bishlam l'Rameir, I understand the pasuk that says Oz tina kamei lasi, and the pasuk doubled back over. Once again, it's Rechsalta Dechamina Echan Nichle Ledida, V'lo Nichle Ledido, Maisi Val Karchayu. Kamashalon, and no, they both have to agree to it. Imloi Sevi Isha Lamali explains the Gemara. Why is this pasuk necessary? It's true. I would have thought that Avram Avinu is telling Eliezer. This is when Eliezer is going to find a shidduch for Yitzchak. If the family agrees to the marriage. But even if the woman herself is not maskim, I would have thought that Avraham Avinu is telling Eliezer, if the family consents, that is enough. Kamash Malan. No, that both she and the family must agree to the marriage. And finally, one last kasha. Bishlama l'Rameir hainu d'chsevim b'chukosei teilecho v'b'chukosei timasu. Whether you listen, you don't listen to the chukim. Why did the Torah have to double it up in the Teichacha? There's no reason according to Chanina ben Gamliel as you don't need a Tanai Kafel. Explains the Gemara. I would think if you listen to Hashem, you get a bracha. If you don't listen, it's just parif. You don't get a bracha, but you don't get a punishment either. Kamash Malan, that no, if you don't listen to Hashem, it's not just you don't get a bracha, but you have the dreadful Teichacha. One last kasha, excuse me, Bishlam the Rameir, Hain Dachsevim Saiva, Ushmaitza Vigaimer, Im Tamanu Merisem, Elder Achlina bin Gamliel, Lamali, Express Achlina Gamliel, Lamali, Yitzchak Sal Dechaminam, Taiva, Taiva, Im Tavu, Taiva, Vim Timanu, Loi, Taiva, Loi Ra, Kamash Ma-lan. I would have thought that Im Taivu Taiva, if they're willing to listen to Hashem, then it'll be good. But if they don't listen to Hashem, it won't be good, it won't be bad. So much as the previous Avamina Kamashallah, that if you don't listen, it's going to be catastrophic. And we'll pick it up from Mai in the next year, B'siyata Dishmaya.